Welcome. In part 3, we are going to talk about the Chrome Sign Builder application and content creation. Because I'm on a Windows machine, I cannot use the web store to find the application. If I was on a Chrome device, I could. But since I'm not, I actually have to do a Google search for it. Once I find the application, I can select it. And as you can see, for me, it says Launch App. That's because I already have it. I can either launch it from here, but because I already have it, it actually installs underneath my apps here. Chrome Sign Builder. Select it. Once selected, it will launch itself. Here you can see I already have some scheduled content for building one. Here you'll see a mini play window of the content that should be being displayed on the display. Let's cover off a few of the settings in Chrome Sign Builder. If I had to create a new schedule, I can give that schedule a name by selecting the drop down, select Edit. Let's call this Building 2. Here I have the system default. These are the options that I have in there. I'll leave this as is. The purpose of the default URL is so that whenever I have no content scheduled to play on my TVs, this is the content it's supposed to play. I recommend that you test this and don't assume that it will just work for you. I'll show you another way that you can add content in that it will play all the time, and then predefined schedules will interrupt the content that's playing. I'll save this schedule. Now, before we begin building our schedule, I'd like to point you to another area inside Chrome Sign Builder. It's called Collections. So what are collections? Collections are shortcuts to URLs that you are publishing. Here I currently have none, so I may want to create one. And I'll call this collection Building 2. Now that I have a collection, I need to add content to this collection. Select Add Content. Here, I need an easy way to understand what I'm putting in. So I give it a title. B2, meaning Building 2, Cafeteria, Lunch. The URL to this content, I place in here. Press Enter on my screen, and I have my first content for Building 2. Building collections is totally optional. Just wanted you to be aware that this feature exists. I'll show you how to use it later on. Let's now go back to our scheduler. Building 2, we're on. Now that we're back on our schedule, we can see different options. We can see a time schedule for hours of the day. We can also see up here one called All Day. This you could do in place of the default URL that we talked earlier about in the video. You can select it. You can put in a URL here. You can tell it to show forever. You can choose advanced options. We'll cover these off a little later in the video. For now, I'd like to talk to you about this publishing of the URL. Some users will tell you that you should be using the web publish URL for in this spot. What does that mean? I'll open up a slideshow. Place it on my screen here. Up under File, Publish to the Web. How often do you want the slides to change? Every 15 seconds, restart, and you publish. You sure? Yes. Now when you publish, what ends up happening is that you end up with a URL like this. So you copy that URL, you go back over to your sign builder, and you place that URL in here. When you put the URL in, and I'm just going to show you here, when you place the URL in, this is what it looks like. But if I open the presentation box and I want to hide the player controls, I set that on and I say done. I want you to see that the URL in fact changes. Look at the big difference that there is right now in the URL. And if I take that URL and paste it in my browser, I get, sorry, unable to open the file. So if you run into a problem, that's what the issue could be. I found a better way to do the publishing, and it's not that way. So I'm going to go back in. I'm going to turn off publishing. I'll close that window. Instead, I'm going to share the file. When I share the file, I can say on anyone with the link. Anyone who has the link, no sign-in required. Save that. If I copy that link now, then I go back into my sign builder. Oh, go back into my sign builder. I'm going to delete that link. I'm going to cancel that. Go back, open it up again. I'll put this link in. And just so you can see what that link looks like, as the share option. So shared. I can open the publisher. I can say hide. Time for the slides. I want it to change every 15 seconds. I say done. Select save. If I open that again, copy that URL, go back over here, put that one in, and I'll have content that's playing. I just wanted to show you that because some people seem to have issues with doing it through publishing, the publishing, and I mean, you can get this to work, but you have to modify the URL. Going forward, this is how I will be creating my URLs using slides. So now what I want to do is go back to my schedule, and I actually have a different show that I want to present. Put this one in, my presentation options, hide every 15 seconds, done. And then I'm going to save this. I want to show it forever. Because I'm showing forever, I lose the other options. Now there is an option here that says automatically reload the URL. The purpose of this is that if I had modified any of the content in the show, when the screen refreshes after X amount of time that I've set it to, then it would show that new content. However, I have found that this can interfere with the slideshow if you're scheduling content in it. It works fine if you're doing one show and that's it, and not scheduling content. And I'm just going to save this. Now that it's saved, let's see about scheduling in a piece of content. The content we're going to use is what we put into our collections earlier. So I select the day that I want the content to begin to play, and I'm setting it at 11:30. Up here, it's case sensitive, so B. If I had to type the small b, nothing would show. Select Advance to choose more options. Repeat is only once. No, I want it to do daily. Repeat indefinitely, or I could define a date, in which case I want it to stop playing. I'm going to say repeat indefinitely, and I'll save this. Once again, I have this option here, but I will not choose it for previously mentioned reasons. Save. So now, starting on Monday, this content will be scheduled to play. If the slideshow that is playing gets modified while it's being played, it will not show the new content. Just something you should be aware of. It will show the content the next time it cycles through. which will be the following day. The next couple of pieces I'd like to share with you are things to consider when building your slideshow. One of the first things to consider about your slideshow is, do you want to create your own templates for the show, or do you want to look online to find Google slideshow templates that you could be using? Those are things to consider. Another thing you might consider is, how could I play video? If my slides transition to a new slide every 15 seconds, how would I be able to play any kind of content? Well, for this, I have an example. Here you're going to notice two things. One is my video, and this other box that I have down here that's purposely a different color. What I want you to see in slides is that you can insert a video. When you insert the video, you can go by URL, you can say from YouTube, you can even say Google Drive. I myself have had not very much luck with using Google Drive. It plays for a while, and then eventually I would get an error message. So I decided that I would play from YouTube, from my channel. So I'm going to cancel that. Here's the video that I put in. I'm using my personal video, and the only reason for that is that I found some videos don't work because some people have advertising on their pages, in which case it needs to play through the advertising or it breaks in the making. This video that I made was made from another program that allowed me to upload to YouTube. So with that, if I right click on the video after I put it in, I can pick my format options. Under the video playback, I can decide to play from a certain amount of time to a certain amount of time. In this case, 2 minutes to 3 minutes, 5 seconds. I tell it to autoplay, and I want it to mute the audio. Now, with that selected, I now need to find a way for my screen to be paused so it doesn't flip over in 15 seconds. This is where this box came in. If I right click on it and I go to animate, I can see here that all these animations are put in. I don't want this on click. I want it to animate after the previous. So I calculate the amount of time. Each one of these can only play for 5 seconds, if I said. So with these being 5 seconds each, and my slide changing in 15 seconds, I would have close to 1 minute and 5 seconds. This is not an exact science, but it does work. So it's one way of you being able to play video in your signage. Now that you have this in your slide presentation, you could duplicate it. What I mean by duplicate is that if your presentation is quite long, you could right click and say duplicate slide. Look at the options again. And now you could change this to, I want the first minute to the first 2 minutes to play. That way you don't have to go and recreate this. It's worth noting that this would actually be the same color as the background. That way audience won't see it transitioning. Another thought to keep in mind is that digital signage does not have to be a one-person job for the creation of content. Let me explain. Google Slides allows for the option of linking slides. Let's see how that would work. Here I have a slide that I'm not the owner of, but it is shared with me from another department. They want this to be advertised. So what I do is I right click and I copy the slide. I go to where my slide presentation that's on my signage is, and I click a new signage. I right click, and now I want to paste. When I paste, I get the option to link the slide. So I say link slide. It now shows this slide is linked to another slide. Now when the department head modifies the slide, we will see a change in the slide that said that needs to be updated. We can go individually look at the slide to make sure the content is accurate, or we can select update. And when we select update, notice how the date has changed. Now that we have some content created and we have a schedule created, we're going to need to upload that to our digital signage. We'll look at that in part 4.